This conference will now be recorded.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Tom Tayo. I'm the Managing Director of Strategic Path Financial Group and your local college funding specialist with the College Authority. We've been doing this in person and online for about 8 years now, so we have experienced many different situations, and we're glad to bring this to you virtually. Change is ahead, but is how we respond during these uncertain times that makes us stronger. Let's continue to move forward, educate, believe in ourselves, and sacrifice towards future generations to come out better on that other side. So thank you for joining us once again, and we are happy to bring this important topic to you. This is our passion. We love educating people about life-changing events, especially college planning. Our webinar is going to run about 45 minutes tonight and is titled An Insider's Guide to College Funding, How to Pay for Your Child's College Education with as little money out of pocket as possible. We will email everyone viewing this webinar some important documents to review, so please check your inbox or spam folder in case you don't see them originally. Now, we do work with many school districts all across the nation under the agreement of two circumstances. One, that we educate as many families as possible about the college funding process for free, which we are doing here tonight. And two, that every family who attends this webinar is offered a 1-hour consultation for free as well, and either virtually or face-to-face in our office once conditions permit. Now, please write down this information. This is important. So how do all of you book your free consultation with our firm? So as you can see on your screen, you can book your appointments directly from my calendar, and the information's on the screen there. Or we can meet with you at our office in Ventura County or Orange County as well, once conditions permit. And then you can see we do meet through GoToMeeting, and I'll email everyone on the webinar tonight once you book your appointments, the details of the GoToMeeting. Now, due to the volume of our workshops, one of the requirements is that for your free consultation, that is that you book it within the next 2 weeks, please. We also post weekly up-to-date videos about the college process, the college planning process that is, on our Facebook page. So please search for Strategic Path Financial Group and like our Facebook page. Now, hopefully, this is not the way you plan to pay for college.
Oh God, no, I don't want to click it. I'm not gonna click it. When are you click it? If they say no to you, I say we say no to them. If they don't want my baby, they're stupid. When I became a dad, I made a choice to support my daughter's dreams. You don't have enough money. It says right here we have $401,000. Jeff, you missed it. That says you have a 401k account. Alex thinks we can afford tuition and we can't. We gotta lie. That's what parents do. Because otherwise the kids are gonna realize that we don't know what we're doing. Welcome. I have a way for you guys to make 4 years tuition in 1 month. Underground Casino. Seems to check out.
Do this now. You're 40 years old and you go to jail for 20 years. How old are you when you get out?
90.
No.
100.
Honey.
If I have some scratch paper, I can figure it out.
So please keep in mind, this information provided tonight is based on current laws and regulations. The information is general in nature because everyone's financial situation is different. Our webinar attendees will be offered that free consultation to review your specific situation. So we will discuss requirements of that free consultation towards the end of the call as well. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to give you everyone that general knowledge of FAFSA. That stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So what's my story? Why am I in this business? It's twofold, really. A, you can see these are my two beautiful kids that I'm so proud of, and that I know everyone on this call is so proud of our kids, and that's why we're on this call, is they wanted to always go to USC ever since they could walk. We went to all the football games, everything, and man, that was a huge goal of ours. And then obviously the second reason is we are financial advisors, make no mistake about it. And while planning for our clients entering retirement, we kept hearing a very common theme that our kids' college cost way more than we thought it would and wiped out our IRA or 401k. So we knew there had to be a better way and started searching far and wide for a complete program that would offer both student services and comprehensive planning for back-end college funding. I'm very happy to say that we have found that. And so without further ado, let's get into this. Our research has told us, and we've been doing this again for 8 years now in person and online, why did people respond to the mail out or the email that you received, the invitation you got? Why did you respond and why are you here on this webinar today? And also, why do you take advantage of our free consultation? Why do you decide to potentially engage us in our services? Are these things right here on the screen? Number one, not having enough time to do everything that's involved. I mean, honestly, who here does college planning as a full-time job? I think I'm the only one on this call, obviously. So everyone else has something going on between 9 and 5. Even before that starts, you have your parental responsibilities, your spousal responsibilities. You're going here, you're going there. The last thing you want to do at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night is put on your college admissions cap and do the hours of research for the right school, for the right fit, for the right reason, where your child has the proper ACT or SAT scores for admission, and they're in the top 75th percentile of your school. I mean, who's excited about this? Besides me, that is. And then there's not just the admission side, it's the financial aid side. Does this school give money? Does that school give money? How much of it is free? How much of it is in the form of loans? This stuff can take a long time to do the proper research on. And on that same note of coming home late and trying to do this by yourself, who here has ever filled out a FAFSA form before? It's not overly difficult, right? But there's literally 150 questions on there that you have to answer and input financial data for. And that's just the FAFSA form. Who here's filled out the private school form called the profile form? And that's an additional form. And then if your children are looking at the elite schools like Stanford, USC, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, or MIT, they have their own institutional forms that they also want you to fill out. If you're doing this stuff late at night under candlelight, maybe a couple glasses of wine in, it usually causes mistakes to happen, right? What about deadlines? Do you even know all the deadlines for each school that your kid is applying for? For those families that have been through this process before, they're probably already aware that one of these schools can have 6 or 7 different deadlines for the admissions application. So we've all heard about the regular application deadline, but what that certain date and time when your child has to get that application in, right? But did you know that there's an early decision deadline, an early action deadline? There might also be an essay deadline, a financial aid form deadline. I mean, how many children are just applying to one school as well, right? There's very few of those kids out there. So there's a lot of opportunities for mistakes to be to be made, as you can see. By the way, I used to not even ask this question until it really happened to me. If your child's a senior, do you even know all the schools they're applying to? I actually had one parent that didn't know any of the schools that their kid was applying to, and these were some big name schools too. And when the parents found out which schools, their face got completely flushed and they said, "Man, we can't afford those schools. What if they actually get accepted into those schools? We have no plan on how to pay for it." Which leads me to another reason why mistakes can happen. When your child is filling out the financial aid forms because you don't have enough time to do it, do they even know how much money you make or what your adjusted gross income was last year or how much your IRA is worth? I mean, I'm sure that people on this call, it won't happen to, but these mistakes do happen and these are real stories. So it's just very concerning. One more question. Who here feels like they do not have a plan for admissions and how they're going to pay for it? Honestly, most people here I would suspect, and is why you're here, right? But you do have a plan on how you would figure this out. It's just like when our first child was born. They don't give you an instructional handbook, right? You kind of have to figure it out along the way. So typically our oldest children are our guinea pigs, right? We make all the mistakes with our older kids and then learn and learn as we go on. We get better as our younger children get older. That's kind of the same process that happens with the college admissions planning and financial aid and how to pay for it. There's no handbook for this. It's taken us years and years to figure this out and give you the information and give you that insider's guide. So guess what? They want you to pay as much money out of pocket as possible so they can hold on to their money, right? So don't leave money on the table. On top of the parents' biggest concerns, one of my biggest concerns is the inflation nightmare. As you can see from this graph, the price of college tuition and fees is rising faster and faster than every other segment of the economy of the consumer price index. So let me ask you, how many of you do your own taxes? You can use the chat box, please. And usually when I ask this question at my live workshops, some families raise their hands. I see a few yeses coming through that do their own taxes. So then let me ask you this question. How many of you would take on the IRS in an audit alone? Bueller? Bueller? The room gets really, really quiet. People say, well, no, I wouldn't do that because they know all the rules. So why would you take on the college beast without knowing all the rules and the insider's game to this? You're leaving thousands and thousands of dollars on the table that are now going to become coming out of your own pocket and going to those rich universities, right? These college costs are skyrocketing. So what's included in the total cost of attendance for college? It's not just tuition, it's tuition, fees, books, room and board, lab expenses. It's everything except pizza money and drink money, right? That's called the total cost of attendance. And we have some costs of attendance that are relatively low, like at your community colleges, they have a relatively low cost of attendance. And then you have your middle of the line private schools, and you have your state schools as well. And then let's not forget about the Ivy League schools. You can have a cost of attendance at a local community college of like $3,000 a year, or as high as $80,000 a year at an Ivy League school. So as you can see, the cost of attendance varies dramatically. By the way, that cost of attendance is not slowing down at all. It's increasing at a rate of about 7 to 8% a year. And why is that? It's economics. The simple law of supply and demand. More employers now than ever before are only interviewing job applicants if they have a 4-year college degree, right? I mean, even if they're going to teach them everything all over again, they are required to have that college degree even to get that interview or get hired in the first place. So there's never been more social pressure for these kids to have a college degree than ever before. And hence the reason there are now more undergraduates enrolled in higher education programs than ever in our history. And by the way, if you take a school like Cal State Northridge or San Francisco State, for example, they have a cost of attendance right now for 2020 that's about $24,000 to $30,000 a year. So let's take that worst case scenario of like $30,000 a year. Do you know how long it takes the average student to earn a bachelor's degree? I mean, what is that national average of how long it takes a student to earn a bachelor's degree? If everyone can use the chat box, please. The answer, I'm seeing some come through at 7 years. Well, that's a little bit extreme. The answer is 5.8 years is the national average. So if you go to any school admissions page, they don't even publish 4-year graduation rates anymore. You know what they publish? 6-year graduation rates. So at Cal State Northridge or San Francisco State University, they're boasting about 6-year graduation rates of 93% or what have you. But on an average cost of $30,000 a year, that's $180,000 for a bachelor's degree from Cal State Northridge or San Francisco State. You can see the problem this becomes. It might even be bigger than your outstanding mortgage, for God's sakes, and you have significantly less time to pay for it. And retirement is probably just around the corner when your youngest is graduating from college, right? These are the real issues we're facing. Is any of this resonating with anyone here on this webinar tonight? If not, now would be a good time to log off, because this is what we're going to talk about the rest of the webinar. So we have 4 ways to pay for college, if you get accepted, that is. So you can use your savings account, you can borrow money for it, and we've all heard those horrible things about student loans and student debt, right? We can get scholarships, or we can go to a cheaper school. Now, be honest with me, is everyone here just in case your child doesn't get a full ride? Just in case, right? And then we have the option of going to a cheaper school. Well, I will argue that number 4, that option of going to a cheaper school is not the route to go. But let's take a closer look at this. Even if you had $200,000 saved for college, it's painful to write that check to that rich university, right? No, now there is something on the Department of Education form, and everyone can write this down. It's called your Asset Protection Allowance, or your APA. And it says this: if you have too much money to your name, too much checking, savings, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, rental properties, vacation homes, if you have too much money in your name, that they're going to withhold financial aid dollars that otherwise would have been offered to your child. I know it's not fair. I know. Don't shoot the messenger. About a year ago, we had a client attend one of our workshops with an adjusted gross income of about $48,000. She had recently inherited a lump sum of about $300,000 from her aunt. So when she was looking at what her expected family contribution was, based on those numbers, of course, it read $19,000. Well, after working with us, we were able to show her how to utilize that APA, the Asset Protection Allowance, to protect that $300,000. We were able to move these funds to a place that did not count against her in the algorithm. Do you know what it reduced her EFC to? $1,500. That's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here, and why we offer those free consultations. Now, I ask you the question, wouldn't you want to know what your asset protection allowance number is before you start filling out the financial aid forms and sending them out to multiple schools? Again, who has ever played a game, an athletic game, a board game, any type of game, period, where you went into it blindly and didn't care to know the rules? Does anyone do that? Not me. If you're going to play a game, we at least want to know the rules of engagement or the guidelines, right? I mean, no one's been giving us these rules for this college funding process and the admissions process. This is what we're offering to all of you on this webinar, helping you understand that insider's game to this process so you can pull out as little money out of pocket as possible. So now let's talk about the dreaded student loans. I would say 9 out of 10 families, or about 90% of our families that we work with, end up having to take student loans or use loans in some form for their college funding process. Some people take out loans because they have to. Some people take out loans because they want to. Want to? Yeah, now let's think about this. If you're going to have to take a loan, would you rather take one that gives you a tax deduction or one that doesn't? So yes, we like tax deductions, right? I mean, the CPAs and the accountants that we work with, we all love tax deductions, but they have to be legal and ethical, right? Would you want a loan that has a fixed monthly payment, or one that starts low but teases you into a higher and higher payment? So fixed or variable? Well, fixed, of course. And interest-free or any other type of interest? Now, that's a silly question, but let's think about this. So, have you ever heard of, oh, I'm not even going to fill out that financial aid form because we make too much money? You've heard people say this, right? Well, let me tell you, you can't get any good interest rate loans, zero interest rate loans for that matter, unless you fill out the financial aid forms. Even those families that don't make a lot of money, some loans are given based off financial need, and others are merit based. Right. So let me give you an analogy. Some of my colleagues, one of my colleagues' offices got flooded. They're located in Houston, Texas, because of the big storm that came in. They lost a lot of electronics, all their furniture, everything was totaled. So they were given this option of a 30-month interest-free FEMA loan or to pay cash to replace their equipment and their furniture. So obviously they're not excited about either, but if they're going to be given the opportunity of a 0% loan for 30 months, they're going to take that offer because that's the same as cash. They can spread it over that 30-month period, pay it off, and it didn't cost them a cent of interest to do so. So better than nothing, right? But why wouldn't we apply for that same concept to college? You can. And you thought coming into this, well, all student loans are bad. No, not all student loans are created equal. So would you like to take a loan out for each and every year? So four years in a row, or one loan for all the years, right? Our clients' children typically graduate in 4 years, not 5 or 5.8 or 6 years. So 4 years. Isn't it sad that we really feel like we're saving you all money when we help your students graduate in 4 years and not 5 or 6? Well, I digress. So 4 years. So would you rather take 4 loans or one loan for all 8 semesters? One loan, right? It just simplifies things. Again, you need to know what to do before you start playing the game. So there's about $245 billion to $325 billion in scholarships and financial aid out there, depending on what source you're reading from. What percentage of that $245 billion comes in the form of scholarships? So depending on the publication, it's either 2 to 3% comes in the form of scholarships. Really sad. I mean, so we've only got a limited amount of time, energy, and money, yes? Do we want to spend it all chasing that 2 or 3%, or do we want to chase it after the 97%? So here's what the scholarships mean. When a private institution or a private corporation, a charity, a church, a foundation, or even an individual, when they give away money for college and they don't want it turned back into them, that would be a loan. That's called a scholarship, excuse me. Now, what some of you may be thinking about is grants. Grants are different from scholarship. There's 2 types of grants. There's merit-based grants, which your child might get based on their SAT or ACT scores, or if they were Eagle Scouts, volunteer work in their chosen field, student leadership programs, have a solid resume for the schools that they're applying for, etc. Maybe one of those schools decides, yes, we're going to give that child merit-based money. And then there's also need-based grants, and that's based on the financial need, and we'll talk about that in a second. So myth versus reality. I make too much money. I'm not going to even qualify for any financial aid. That's a myth, you guys. But if you go to the soccer game, or if you talk to other parents or around the coffee pot at work after this situation we're in, and you hear other people talking, you talk to your brother or your sister, be careful. I would warn you, because you don't know how smart their child is. You don't know their financial picture. So, you hear people saying, you're not going to get this or you're going to get that. It just all depends. Everyone's situation is different. You can make $10 a year or 10 million a year and get financial aid as well. So not all financial aid are grants. Some of financial aid are those low cost, low interest rate loans that I was talking about earlier that could come in the form of from the federal government or the state government. So question, my child's not a great student, so we're not going to get any financial aid. Is that a myth? Or yeah, that's a myth. And do you know what the bigger issue is? Can your child get accepted to the university that they're applying to? So this is not just a financial aid or a how to pay for it conversation. This is also an admissions, a student services conversation. Are they taking their SAT or ACT seriously enough? Those tests can be worth thousands of dollars in financial aid, but they can also be the difference between getting accepted at a particular university or not getting accepted at all. Are they doing a good job on their essays? Do they have a resume? Have they completed any community service that was not court ordered? I'm just testing you guys, see if you're still paying attention. So private schools are not subject to the rules and regulations of the Department of Education. They're private, right? They got the gold, so they're going to make the rules. On the financial profile, on the profile form, they ask what the fair market value of your house is and what's the outstanding loan balance on your mortgage. What are they trying to calculate, you guys? Home equity, right? And if you have too much home equity, they're going to withhold financial aid to your child, causing you to find more money from another location or source, potentially causing you to dip into your retirement accounts or even your home equity to pay for school. It's not fair. I agree. But don't you want to know all these things and what your number is before you fill out these applications and send in these financial aid forms? It's a quick and simple process. I'm going to say a myth on that one. And then colleges and financial aid officers will help us. Myth or reality, you guys? I'm going to say myth on this one because the college admissions officer is different than the college financial aid officer. All right, so let's talk about this. That chair in your kitchen, how much does that chair cost at Cal State Northridge? As I told you earlier, that $20 chair costs $30,000 at Cal State Northridge per year because it's not representative on what it costs. It's the intrinsic value of what it's going to give, right? So that chair at the local community college costs $3,000. At Duke, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, or MIT, that's an $80,000 a year per chair and everywhere in between. So if you submit an application for admissions, guess what? They'll do everything in their power to try to get your child to go there, assuming they have the grades, the SAT score, the resume, and there's no mistakes made on the application. But once your child gets accepted, you get handed off to a college financial aid officer, right? If you've been through this before, you know exactly what I'm saying is true. So you get a college financial aid officer, guess what their job is? First of all, they have a boss, and then they have a boss, and that's the chancellor of the university. What does the chancellor of the university ultimately want to see? How big that endowment fund is getting for the university, right? So for the college financial aid officer, this is a unit of revenue. And at the Ivy League schools, that's an $80,000 unit of revenue. At the in-state schools, a $30,000 unit of revenue. And at the mid-level private schools, it's a $50,000 or $60,000 unit of revenue. So as parents, we want the school to do what? To pay as much of the tuition as possible. So we pay as little out of pocket as possible, right? But the college financial aid officer is your adversary in this relationship. Their job is to hold on to the school's money and grow that endowment fund as much as possible. Now, they'll help you with federal money, but guess what? There's not enough. The federal Pell Grant right now is $5,500 for an incoming freshman in 2021. $5,500. Now, how much does the in-state school cost? $30,000, and your household income has to be pretty much less than $60,000 a year to even qualify for the federal Pell Grant. So that's not helping us too much. Then they'll help you with state money, whatever state money is available. And unless you're in an extraordinary case, they're going to look at you and say, would you like some loans? They will proceed to offer you and your student the worst type of student loans out there. Do any of you see the problem with this process? No rules to the game, no manual, yeah. So here's the $120,000 question. How do I get my fair share of financial aid? Well, we have to understand some important algorithms here. So everyone write this down. COA minus EFC equals FN. You may be thinking, well, Tom, I didn't tune into this webinar to work out an algebra problem. I understand. So let me explain. Cost of attendance. Now, that's everything we talked about earlier. Tuition, rooms, books, board, everything but pizza and drink money, right? The expected family contribution, this is what the Department of Education says the minimum amount that your family should be able to pay for your student to go to college. So when you take those two and subtract them, it equals the family need. And that's the amount of financial aid that you can possibly qualify for if you pick the right school. There are really only three categories of families that we work with. The first category of family is living paycheck to paycheck. It's really a struggle for them. Income and savings are not anywhere near what they'd like to be. Maybe there's some debt that we have to take care of. This type of family will qualify for maximum financial aid dollars given they are accepted, but they still have to submit all the forms 100% accurately and on time. And if they don't submit them that way, well, let me give you guys a scenario. So I'm a financial aid advisor and I'm receiving many financial aid applications every day, right? So as they come in, I build a stack on the left that are done properly, 100% correct, and a stack on the right that are maybe missing one or two items like the address, or they're missing the household income, or the state's wrong or something like that. Which one am I going to fill out first? Which one am I going to process first? I'm going to start processing and passing out the money to the ones that are done properly, right? Now, I'm going to come back to the families on the right that say, please correct this or fill out that. But by that time, it might be 6 or 8 weeks later, and the majority of the money may have already been spoken for by other students. So I can't state enough how important it is to complete the forms 100% accurately and submit them on time. The second category of family we work with is probably the majority of people on this webinar. So depending on the schools that the student is considering, are they state schools, private schools, Ivy League schools, etc., and depending on how mom and dad have the position, their income and assets, this could be the difference between getting maximum financial aid dollars and getting zero financial aid dollars. Don't you want to know what this looks like before you send out those applications, before we do financial aid forms, and before we get those hopes and dreams up of our children? Before we start stressing out at night and wondering, oh my God, what if they actually get accepted to those schools? How are we going to pay for it? Does anyone know that feeling? Sure, honey. Oh, gulp, gulp. You can apply for that school, but okay, so you do know what I'm talking about. And the category 3 family, these families are blessed with great income. They're blessed with great assets. For this type of family, money is not a problem. So they're probably not going to qualify for need-based financial aid, but they still have to submit all the forms accurately and on time, because just like everyone else, they also want as much merit-based money as possible, right? They might have the ability to pay cash, but they don't want to if there's legal and ethically a better way to reduce their overall costs. So with these types of families, we definitely look at CPAs and accountants because there might be some income tax savings and cash flow strategies that we can take advantage of. If you had a choice, let me ask you a question. If you had a choice between paying like $200,000 for your student's college education out of your own account, or if you have the ability to use someone else's money while yours keeps working for you and getting and earning that compounding interest, which would you choose to do? We help families like this all the time, where we show them strategies to maintain their own assets, all the while paying for their college, their children's college, and using someone else's assets while it's legal, moral, and ethical to do. So oftentimes families ask me, Tom, last year the Varsity Blues scandal surfaced with elite families paying for the admissions, and how has that affected your business? My answer is, it has made our business even stronger. And here's why. If these elite families had to cheat to guarantee their kids would get into the right schools, what about the rest of us? Those families did not want to take the risk. They wanted to be certain. They wanted to be guaranteed, right? Now, folks, We don't make any form of guarantees for admissions for your student to get accepted. But what we do guarantee is that we will give you the best opportunity because we know the rules of the game, and we will help you navigate the confusing waters to get into the schools that they're applying for. Now, I've already stated to get into this, or started to get into this rather, but the money can only come from 4 places. One, the federal government, the state government, the colleges and universities themselves, or the private scholarships. The federal government requires the FAFSA, that free application for federal student aid, to be completed to qualify, right? But here's an interesting statistic. About 73% of the FAFSA forms completed have mistakes on them. So how many of you have ever taken a personality profile before? Let me ask you that. This form is just like that, asking you the same question in 6 or 7 different ways to find out if you're providing that same answer. And if not, they're going to kick back that application to ask you some additional questions or some asking for additional information. So state governments are all claiming that they're going broke anyway, right? We used to have some really cool accessible money from the state government, and it's just going away and getting uglier and uglier every year. So we've already talked about private scholarships. Has anyone here been on at least one college campus lately, or just even driven by a college campus lately? Wasn't it the ugliest thing you've ever seen before in your life? They're beautiful, are they not? Even the not so cool schools are really beautiful. They're very well kept. They do have money. They just don't want to spend their money. You guys get this, right? It's a business. They're in the business of education. Make no mistake about it. They're in the business of getting your family to pay as much money out of pocket as possible. And up until now, no one was giving you the insider rules. And here we are, giving to you them for free. Now, beyond the FAFSA, there are the private school forms too. The College Board, whom most of you have heard of before, went to all these private schools and said, hey, we'll handle all these forms for you to keep it uniform, and we'll distribute them accordingly. So very important to have all forms consistent with one another or risk being returned. They're looking at everything, including what year, make, and model of the car you drive. So they want to know, as Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story, right? Now, remember I did COA minus EFC equals family need. Wouldn't it be great to think every school is going to meet whatever family need portion that is? So for example, let's just say I'm applying to Caltech. Everyone's heard of Caltech, right? From the Big Bang Theory. That's a $72,000 a year school right now. So that's the COA. And my expected family contribution is $30,000. That leaves $42,000 left over in family need. Now, not every school meets 100% of that $42,000. Some schools only meet 30 to 50% of that. Some schools meet 0. Don't you want to know what school meets 100% of the family need and how generous the other schools are with their money before your child sends in that application? This is all about setting expectations for our children, folks, as well as setting expectations for ourselves. So let me give you an example. Everyone's heard of Stanford University. Awesome school, beautiful place, right? The cost of attendance as of today, are about $79,000 a year. Now this family, let's just say they had an expected family contribution of about $7,800 to round it. So when they filled out the FAFSA, the algorithm said they would be able to pay about $7,800. So it's always more than we want it to be. But if I subtract $7,800 from the $79,000, that leaves about $71,000 of need left over, right? Okay, so have you ever told your child, we can't look at that school because it costs too much? Or have you ever thought that in your head? Most of our families do think that, but after working with us, you might change that story in your head. So, and especially after seeing this. So Stanford has a history of meeting 100% of the need, and it's all free money. It's not a grant. None of it's in the form of a loan. It's not a work study program. It's all free money. In fact, if you Google Stanford free money, it pops up right there. Okay, there's a list of schools that do this. So the Jones family's out-of-pocket cost was $7,800. Now, has everyone heard of San Diego State University? The cost of attendance at SDSU right now is $30,000 a year. $7,800 minus $30,000 is $22,000 of financial need left over, right? But SDSU only meets 73% of that need, which means we are $6,000 short. So who's picking up that shortfall? Mom and dad are, or the child is somehow, right? So that shortfall gets added back into the expected family contribution. So it costs $14,000 a year to go to SDSU versus $8,000 a year to go to Stanford University. Now, if your child wants a degree in criminal justice, music, or elementary education, I might say SDSU is probably a better school than Stanford. But to be honest with you, I mean, if your child wants a degree in anything else, which one would give them a better job opportunity or interview opportunity upon graduation? Stanford, of course, right? And guess what? In this example, it would cost you less to go to an expensive school than it did that cheaper state school. So don't you want to know how this works out for you before you go through this process? Now, that's a big difference, and oftentimes most families would simply rule out before they even started working with us. So the key to all this is getting accepted, but you got to know the rules. So this is an opportunity to make sure you're awarded the best options. Now, it doesn't always work out so beautifully. This can be a messy process, but you can at least find out if you can send your child to the school of their dreams and make it more affordable for your family. By the way, I already talked about this, but I'll touch on it again. This is a business decision for these schools, people. So they are going to give you a lowball financial aid offer when you finally do get that financial aid award letter. Did you know that you can negotiate with these institutions? You can actually appeal. We didn't even know that when we first started doing this 8 years ago, but we will actually appeal and negotiate on your behalf, but we do need leverage. Now, we don't make any guarantees, but I can tell you last year, I mean, we had 13 seniors with 9 successful appeals, averaging $7,800 per family. This year, we've had 37 seniors with 12 successful appeals and a total of $1.4 million in scholarships and financial aid awarded. We are serious about what we do, folks. Did you know that 65% of private schools and 27% of public schools engage in financial aid leveraging? That was really eye-opening to me as well. A recent award letter from Regis University in March of 2020 is next, and we're going to go over this right here. Is, as you can see, the initial financial aid package was $25,500 before the appeal letter was written by our staff. At the top of the screen, you can see that. Now, towards the bottom or the middle of the screen, the revised award was $56,000 per year of an extra $30,000 a year more, $123,000 over 4 years, saving one of our families almost their entire retirement account. So we will email you some more examples from Duke University, Hendrix College, University of Chicago, Carnegie Mellon, et cetera. So please take some time to look through these. I think they're really important. Again, you have to know what to do before you play the game. What about 529 plans? Are they all what they cracked up to be? What are the so-called benefits, the pros? Earnings in a 529 plan grow tax-free and are not taxed when they're withdrawn. What are the so-called negatives, the cons? A rate of return of around 3% for a 529 plan is considered amazing. And what about if your kid decides to withdraw from college altogether? In addition, there are management fees and other hidden costs that erode any gains you might have made. You could also be stuck with a poor selection of investments, which you have no control over and are subject to market declines like our current environment. Are you saying that there are other alternatives, Tom? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. There are other things that we can do to make much better results, and we will work with you on that. Now, I'm not telling you to go home and blow up your 529 plan, but what I am saying is to make sure that you have some competent individual in understanding the rules and regulations of the 529 plan distributions, because they are not all that they were cracked up to be. We use them quite a bit in our case designs. In fact, I just had a meeting earlier today where we incorporated a 529 plan into our private funding strategy. So sometimes it works and other times it doesn't. It's simply a case-by-case situation. So what can you do? How can you not become a casualty? Well, number one, when should you have started doing this? When should you have started planning this? Yep, 17 years ago, right? Exactly, right when they were born. So there's a proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was many years ago, but best time is now. The only time it's too late for college funding services and college planning is their senior year of college career. Yes, college career, the senior year of college. So it's not too late. Maybe we can't get every semester at a low cost if they're already in college, but if we can get the remaining semesters at a lower cost, you're still saving some money, right? This process should have started a long, long time ago. And having a freshman in high school is probably the right time to do this at a leisurely pace when we don't have to cram everything in so quickly. But on the other hand, we can still do a lot of good for seniors in high school. It's just not too late. Most of our clients we bring on this year will be juniors and seniors in high school. So if you're going to compare services for college planning, you must ask these important questions. One, can you show me how to lower my expected family contribution and maximize my opportunity for aid? Two, can you help me pick the right schools and find the lowest out-of-pocket cost for me and my family? Three, can you help me fill out the FAFSA and CSS profile forms line by line? And four, can you negotiate for me when, not if, but when I get a low initial financial aid offer? If they can't answer yes to all of those questions, you might want to keep looking for someone that can. Don't worry, if you make too much money and you think you make too much money, please don't make the mistake of leaving other people's money on the table. Even if it's federal government money, don't leave it on the table. There are other things we can do. We can incorporate merit-based aid for your child, cash flow strategies, etc. There's just no such thing as making too much money. So what are your options? You can do it on your own, and the colleges and universities will love you for doing it on your own, just like every other family has done in the history. Or you can have your high school counselor help you with it, but they usually have way too many students or only can be used as a generic or general resource, not specific to anything. Or you could let your accountant do it for you, but most accountants and CPAs will quickly tell you that you need to find a college funding specialist. They just don't know all of the rules to this. So you know how I know this though? Because CPAs hire us all the time. We even had a certified financial planner hire us because they know this process is a different world and they want the best, pure and simple. Most accountants and CPAs will quickly tell you they do not want to be in this business and they pretty much can't help you. So it's just a completely different animal, completely different mindset. But if you own a business, we do need to bring your CPA into the conversation to maximize your tax deductions. There's a mission for our clients, and our mission is that we want to eliminate the administrative nightmare, which is littered with countless opportunities to leave money on the table. There are just so many places where small errors can be made, but can make a huge impact on the overall financial aid award. We've been in this business for many years now, 8 years, and have seen a lot of things happen and really know what to look for. So we want to make sure we integrate sound financial planning strategies and that we integrate the college admissions and financial aid process into that plan. And then we have to implement a strategy for you, right? It's one thing to just talk about it, and it's another thing to act on it. So ultimately, we will implement admissions help for your children so they can get accepted, financial aid strategies to reduce your overall costs, and college funding strategies to make sure you do it in the most efficient way possible. Our guarantee to you is that we guarantee our services in writing, no hidden clauses, nothing in fine print. We make sure that if you're not thrilled with our services for any reason whatsoever, that you get a prorated refund with no questions asked. We stand behind our families and our services 100%, and this will save you countless hours of energy, time, resources, everything else. Our services, we will create a personalized plan for you. Every cash flow modeling we do for our clients are personalized because every family makes different money. Every family has different ages and a different number of children and different types of schools that they're going to. We will also negotiate on your behalf. We will write letters to appeal and extract as much money from these universities as possible and when possible. And we will also assign a college counselor to work one-to-one with your student to take a personality profile evaluation and interview your student to make sure we're going after the right school for the right degree program for the right reasons, not just because their friend is going there or boyfriend or girlfriend. Did you know there's a 3-year audition for your student to go to college? Did you know they're not just looking at academics, but looking at socialization, what type of volunteer and social activities outside of school, social media accounts, postings, etc. We will help you fill out the FAFSA and CSS profile forms line by line. We will create a list of the right schools that you should be choosing from. And we will do income and asset planning to reduce your EFC as much as legally and ethically possible. We will make sure all of your documents are done accurately and on time so where you are at the head of the line. If anyone on this webinar loves Disneyland as much as my family does, you're probably familiar with the Fast Pass. We thought it was the coolest thing in the world when I was there with my family last summer to just walk up to Space Mountain, for example, at a specific time when there's a huge line way out the door and literally walking by everyone to the front of the line to get on the ride. Isn't that exactly what you want for your student when it comes to the college planning process? If so, here's what we need you to do. Book your appointment now directly on my calendar with the link provided on the screen. Now, due to the volume of workshops we run, we ask you to book your appointment within the next 2 weeks. You can either call me or text me directly on my cell phone listed on the screen, or you can email me as well. As I said, we will email you the documents. So please check your inbox or your spam folder if you don't see them initially. And there's also a few things that you'll need to have available during your free consultation to take advantage of our time spent together. So we'll email you all of that information. We will answer all of your questions. We'll find out where your students' cracks are and potentially help you fill those cracks so your student can go to their dream school. As a bonus, we will run our proprietary software called My Tuition Score to determine your EFC score. This is basically the college version of your credit report and uses some of the same algorithms that the FAFSA form uses. It measures your college preparedness academically and financially for the schools that your child is interested in applying to. That normally costs about $79, but when you access it on your own, but as an added value, when you come in for your first appointment or we meet online, we will run this report for you and your family at no additional cost. And I'll leave you with this. A fool with a plan is better off than a genius without a plan. Thank you for viewing our webinar. It would be an honor to meet with you and your family to find out more about your specific situation. So thanks again. Be safe in this environment. Have a great day or evening. Bye-bye.